Local Justice, presented by Elrod Law Firm, serving our community since 1980. Here's your host, attorney Ben Leader.
Welcome to Local Justice. Today we're excited to have one of York County's most impressive young and up-and-coming attorneys, Heath Myers, with us. Heath, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Heath is a political science major from South Carolina, a graduate of Campbell University School of Law, and spent some time, I think, in the Augusta area before returning to Rock Hill. Is that right?
That's right. Both North Augusta and Augusta, so both sides of the river, and enjoyed it down there too.
All right. Well, we're glad to have Heath on today, and we're going to talk about estate planning and talk about what led him to law school and kind of brought him back to Rock Hill. So, Heath, why don't we start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you're from, and kind of what ultimately led you to decide to go to law school?
Sure. Originally born in Pinehurst, but moved down here when I was really young, about 2 years old. Dad worked for Springs and started working at the textile plant down here as both a plant manager, and then worked in Fort Mill with Springs as well. From 1994 to 2012, we were here. Grew up in Shannon Park out in the Newport area, off Museum Road. Went from Northwestern High School to University of South Carolina, then to Campbell, as you mentioned. And as far as law path is concerned, my family always joked growing up that we needed a lawyer in the family. At least my granddad did. And I don't think I became the kind of lawyer they envisioned, but estate planning and transactional real estate is always fun too.
That's right. And I went to Campbell as well. I know we've got a couple of local Campbell grads here, Harry Dess, Judge Hall, and so we've got a good Campbell contingency here. They obviously place a heavy emphasis on trial advocacy there. Was estate planning something you knew right away that interested you, or did you kind of find your way there along the way?
More or less along the way. I did have a really good professor, which you had, Jimmy McLaughlin as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fantastic professor, certainly a character, and led the way for me to really embrace wills and trust through that. Also, having the background and working as a summer intern for a real estate firm, realized how much overlap between estate planning, probate, and your real estate practice. So I thought it'd be just a great thing to add to the practice, and started to develop that. As I was in North Augusta, was fortunate to have two really great mentors in John Geddes and Joe Rad to learn from as well, and just continue to develop that practice.
Absolutely, two of the best in the business.
Absolutely.
And I think Joe's recently retired and is enjoying the retired life now. Is that right?
That's right. He is embracing it wholeheartedly. Hasn't looked back since.
Does he still show up to cook breakfast every now and then for the team, or is that those days are over too?
No more breakfast. He still comes in to say hey, and of course he always says that he's a phone call away, so just a great resource for me to have. Always get a chance to call on him with any questions, and just to have his experience there.
That's right. Well, one of the things I like the most about the York County Bar compared to some of the other bars I've been exposed to is just the sense of camaraderie and how the more senior attorneys do take on that mentoring role. And you've got two great mentors in Mayor Geddes and Joe. And what type of things have you learned from them along the way that's allowed you to kind of have the confidence to build your own practice and blossom?
They do a good job at Morton & Geddes in general. Just telling you from day one that this is going to be your practice. Of course, you're part of a greater firm that's here to support you, but to get out in the community, meet the people in the community, and both John and Joe and everybody in our firm have been very good at introducing me to anyone they meet. Never shy about introducing me and helping me establish a connection if I don't have that. I was very fortunate growing up here to have that network, the community that raised me, to be back home and get to rely on them, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. But at the same time, having two people in your corner like both John and Joe that have really served this community for so long, to have that network there has been very, very, very helpful.
That's right, and I know you've gotten involved yourself too. We serve on the Hospice and Community Care Board together. I think you're in a leadership role there too, so it's good to see you already giving back, at a younger age.
Yeah, really enjoy that. The hospice has been around for a number of years, and I know your father's one of the ones that helped establish that. So certainly thank him for that, and everyone that he was with doing that. It's been a great board to serve on, and enjoy having you there now. So appreciate you helping us.
Absolutely, glad to be a part of it. Well, let's talk a little bit about your practice area. I say estate planning. Does that pretty much cover, what you would describe as your specialty?
Yes. Well, both estate planning and residential real estate, handle both of those there. It's kind of a 50-50 practice, and I know you mentioned that with John, or John mentioned that when he was on as well. I work directly with him, under him, however you want to phrase that. But we both handle wills, healthcare power of attorneys as far as estate plans are concerned. As I get a little bit deeper into that with trust, and then we both handle residential real estate too.
Sure, and one of the most frequent calls we get is asking about wills. Even though that's not our practice area, I know that's something that's on a lot of folks' mind, and a lot of people know they need to get a will, but they just can't get around to doing it. What would you tell the viewers in terms of, who needs an estate plan and who does not need an estate plan?
That's a good question. I would never say you do not need an estate plan. It's always helpful. It's a great tool to have. And when we say estate plans, it can be as simple as you having a power of attorney in place, whether it's a healthcare power of attorney or power of attorney, having a will in place as a tool for a blueprint to assist your family after you've passed, or a trust, again, if necessary for you there. But as far as too early or who doesn't need one, I have clients as young as 18 that are going off to college for the first time. And because they are 18 and no longer minors, then they don't necessarily have a guardian in place for them. So even having a healthcare power of attorney in place for someone that young, in the event something unfortunate were to happen, they've got their parents designated and allowed to speak with the medical professionals and make those decisions for them. When you get into your younger professional life and family life as well, as far as developing an estate plan, it's really important to have one, especially when you have children. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate people in place and designated to carry out your wishes, to take care of the property and assets for your children, for your surviving spouse, so on and so forth. And then if you acquire any major assets, of course, so a home, any kind of substantial inheritance, but just making sure you have that in place and have that succession plan in place so that there's no questions amongst your family who's in charge of what and who is allocated what.
That's exactly right. And, the assets is an interesting comment, because a lot of the people that I hear do not have wills, will say it's because I don't have a lot of assets. Right. But it's not all about the assets. There's a lot of things that it does to help make your loved ones' lives easier, after something were to happen, versus just dividing the assets up. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's what it is. It's a tool, it's a blueprint for the people surviving you to know what your wishes are and to designate the people to be in charge to carry out those wishes on your behalf. You want to make sure that the person that is appointed for you is someone you trust, someone that's going to look out in the best interest for your children, for your surviving family members, whoever your beneficiaries may be. You have designated that appropriate person and someone you trust wholeheartedly to do so.
Got it. Well, that's great. We're going to take a much deeper dive back into estate planning and answer some more questions about probate law here shortly. Heath, thanks for joining us. Look forward to circling back up after a brief commercial break. Thank you.
As soon as I contacted Elrod Pope, they handled everything. Without Elrod Pope's help, I'd have been paying hospital bills for years to come. Elrod Pope just took the stress and they put it on their table and took it off mine.
Coming to Elrod Pope, I didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was taken care of. It put me in a real calm state because I had someone on my side. I knew that I was in the right hands. It felt great.
We know the type. You like to start early, finish late, make lemon squares, and make payments to the college fund from anywhere in the house. We know you rely on Comporium for the things you rely on most, like a view of the backyard. That's just a bunny, and hundreds of channels to watch, whenever you want. So you may think of us as just your internet company, but we're more like the I didn't know they could do all that company. Comporium, always ready.
Coke Zero is now Coke Zero Sugar, with great Coke taste. Some people were excited to hear the news, some were skeptical. So we're not going to have the star of the show you're watching come out and say, "You'll love it." No special jingle written by this week's hottest pop star. No famous internet celebs who happen to be holding the label just so. Okay, maybe just one little pour shot. The only thing that will make you believe Coke Zero Sugar has great Coke taste is trying it yourself. Ice cold Coke Zero Sugar. Try one today.
Being there for someone in their time of need is what Green Funeral Home has done compassionately for 4 generations. It's a privilege we take very seriously.
We believe each life should be honored and remembered by family and friends. Whether you choose traditional burial in our chapel or another venue, or cremation provided by our on-site crematory, we will help guide you through each step to ensure your needs are met.
We are also available to discuss pre-planning. Peace of mind that you have helped your loved one by making those difficult decisions.
When the need arises, our family is here for your family.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Ben Leader, and today we've got a special guest with us, Heath Myers, who's discussing all things probate law with us. Heath, thanks again for being here. Want to dive right back into some estate planning questions. So, we've talked a little bit about the will and the importance of having that in place. If somebody were to die without having a will in place, how does the law work in South Carolina for that?
In South Carolina, it's what's called the probate process is through intestacy law, so subject to the intestacy statute there. And that's completely dependent on the family dynamic. For example, if you are only survived by your wife or by your spouse, then your spouse is going to inherit your property there. When you have children in play, it becomes a lot bigger of a mess. Elective share side, a whole different topic there, but just straight down the board as far as the intestacy statute is concerned, you'd have your wife receive half your property, and then your children would split the other half of your property. Becomes a big issue, especially when your kids are minors, because they have inherent guardians in place, but also would need a court-appointed guardian. And in order to do so, of course, a more formalized process in order to receive that guardian conservator, and if there is any real property involved, have the authority to sell that property. So it just becomes a lot bigger of a mess when you involve minor children.
So essentially, if you pass without a will, there's state laws in place that dictate, how the assets are divided up into whom, and you essentially lose control of, who gets what. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
And if somebody may not have as close of a relationship, that doesn't really matter if there's no will in place that, based on the intestate law.
Yes and no. So you still have a guideline, being the statute there, as to who has the power to be appointed as your personal representative, but not necessarily who receives that property.
Gotcha.
So the personal representative is going to go in order for your surviving spouse would have priority over most, but she would still only receive half of your property if you have minor children. The minor children will receive the other half regardless of who has the priority of appointment there. So you have shares being divided amongst different individuals, whereas your intention more than likely would be for all of your property to pass to your wife.
Gotcha. And so, the gist of it sounds like if it's possible to get a will in place, it's always better to have that versus having to rely on the statute that may not necessarily allow as much control.
Certainly makes things easier. That's exactly right.
Gotcha. And as far as the will goes, I think a lot of people think that having a will created is a very cumbersome process. Can you talk to us a little bit about how simple it can really be and what the basic requirements are?
Yes, and it really can be a very simple process. There's no requirement to have an overly detailed document, and I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up is trying to make sure that every possible scenario is checked off. You can have a very general will, for example, saying that everything passes to my spouse, or everything is split between my spouse and my children, and that these people are going to be in charge. As long as you have a good idea of what your assets are, where those assets are located, then it's very easy to simplify that will, to make an appointment with an attorney and just know that that appointment with an attorney is an interview process. You're not necessarily required to follow through with that particular attorney. If you feel that you aren't comfortable sitting in that room, then make an appointment with another one. Just someone that's going to have your best interests at heart, which I feel, of course, we do at Morton & Geddes, but someone's going to have your best interests at heart to establish that plan for you, clearly communicate with you as to what this process looks like.
And once it is established, I think another concern people have is that it's set in stone and can't be changed, and that's not necessarily the case either. There are formal processes you can go through to update wills or correct wills. Is that right?
That's right. And you say it half jokingly, but it's never too late to change your will until it is. So until you become incapacitated, incompetent, or have passed away, of course, then you can always make revisions to your will. There's nothing set in stone there unless one of those three things occur. And again, you mentioned a formalized process. It doesn't have to be formal. It's making an appointment with that attorney, again, expressing your wishes, how things have changed and why they've changed, and then having the attorney explain to you what the best path forward is and how he or she sees those changes being made on your behalf.
That's right. And as far as making those changes effective, is it essentially several witnesses, eyewitnesses that are neutral or not, tied to the case in any way, have to witness the corrections, and then a couple of signatures and a notary? Is that?
It's the same process as the will. You can either have a codicil drafted, so you'll have two witnesses, two uninterested witnesses, meaning someone that's not a beneficiary under your will. Always recommend a notary as well, but two witnesses are required there. Or you could have a new will drawn up completely. If you're making substantial changes, For example, who's going to receive under your will certain assets or anything that's going to be greater than maybe changing who's going to carry out your wishes on your behalf. It may be easier and cleaner to have a new will drawn. You can discard, shred your old will once that new one's completed.
And as far as communicating, your wishes with your family members, I know a lot of times people don't like having these tough conversations. Do you advise when somebody does have a will created that they go ahead and tell their family about it and, let them know where it's located, or, what is your advice in terms of, how to communicate that there is a will in place so that, there's no guessing?
Right. I believe it's certainly important to do so. It avoids any confusion, potential doesn't always avoid, but it could prevent any confusion or necessarily conflict on the back end there. So like you said, there's no surprises as to what's in the will, but a great idea to have a conversation with your family members, the beneficiaries of your will, even if they're not family members. If it could be a church or a charitable organization or something along those lines of what to expect and why to expect it, so that you can avoid that potential conflict on the back end. No, again, fights, arguments amongst family members that would potentially hold up the probate process. Explaining that these are your wishes and why they're your wishes is very important. And if you make changes, letting them know what those changes are and why they were made.
That's right. I'm sure there's always surprises after the fact, and nobody likes learning those, difficult things, at that time. In terms of the difference in a will and a trust, what's the basic, understanding to a layman of what the difference in those documents are?
Your biggest difference, while they carry out the same purpose, your trust is going to be a tool that allows you to avoid the probate process. The trust is actually going to directly own the property. So the trustee of that trust is going to own your home or own your business or whatever that asset is, rather than you individually owning it there. You're still going to be the primary beneficiary, recipient, whatever you want to call that, of those assets, more than likely, but you'll have it in a different entity name, the entity being the trust. The biggest difference between your trust and your will is that it does avoid the probate process, not subject to any creditor claims that happen post-death. And then your will, on the other hand, a lot of people believe not subject to probate because you have something in writing. The will is the blueprint for the probate court to know how your assets should be dispersed.
Got it. So trust passes completely outside of probate, will goes through probate and dictates kind of how the probate court can divide everything up.
That's right.
Got it. Well, thank you, Heath. We're going to tune in for one more session where we'll dive a little bit deeper into trust and talk a little bit more about your thoughts on justice in the community, and look forward to circling up soon. And thank you all for joining us. We'll be right back.
As soon as I contacted Elrod Pope, they handled everything. Without Elrod Pope's help, I'd have been paying hospital bills for years to come. Elrod Pope just took the stress and they put it on their table and took it off mine.
Coming to Elrod Pope, I didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was taken care of. It put me in a real calm state because I had someone on my side. I knew that I was in the right hands. It felt great.
At Palmetto Pride, we know we have a choice. The choice for cleaner South Carolina. And it's an easy one at that. Don't litter. No grand gestures or heroic efforts here, but the outcome still has monumental impacts. When it comes to our state, every choice counts and every action matters. From the great outdoors to parks next door, from Main Street to your street. All it takes is a little bit of pride to keep South Carolina beautiful.
When a catastrophe hits, it can be a very stressful time for you. When you have trees on your house, when you have trees on your cars, and you don't know what to do, you call us.
We're not a 1-800 number, we're an 803 number. We've been in business for over 60 years because we take care of our clients. That means taking care of them during claim situations.
We're not 9 to 5, we're 24/7. We're gonna be there when you need us most. Gill Insurance, your local auto owner's agent. Understanding business is how we do business.
When it comes to prescription medications and health needs, Rock Hill residents have been turning to Good Pharmacy for over 50 years.
I've been coming to Good Pharmacy since we came to Rock Hill in 1984, and I would not change pharmacists for anything.
With their knowledgeable staff, you can always trust that your prescription will be filled with complete confidence and care for your health. Good Pharmacy, conveniently located at the corner of Ebenezer Road and Camden Avenue.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Ben Leader, and today I'm here with Heath Myers, a local attorney at Morton Geddes, who is helping us understand all things probate law. So Heath, thanks again for joining us. Want to dive back in and ask a question that I think is important, and it's, what type of mistakes have you seen people make when they try to handle this process themselves?
That's a good question. Certainly, trying to prepare their own wills, we run into the biggest issues on the back end. A lot of times you can go on websites such as LegalZoom, assuming that's still in place, or writing your own will, whether it's a handwritten holographic will or typing your own will and having that signed, but just not having the correct powers in place, statute in place, and by doing so restricting your beneficiaries and the people that you designated to carry out your wishes from being able to properly do so, or being able to do so without court order. Really hamstrings them, and something that is easily prevented by having an attorney prepare it for you.
And there's so many nuances and loopholes and just small minor details that can make such a massive difference in the terms of the validity of the will, or what kind of impacts it has down the road. And one thing I've learned just practicing law in 11 years is that you may not find out about a mistake in a will for 20, 30 years from the time it was created, and it the lawyer who may have created it may be long gone at that point, and so, having a will in place is crucial, but having it done correctly is just as important. And, there's a reason that so many people lean to lawyers for this and not just go on, LegalZoom to check a box. And, it's still important.
That's right. One of the things that keeps you up at night every night is just making sure that something you did 10 to 15 years ago isn't going to come back, and why you double, triple, quadruple check your work before having that client come in and sign.
That's right. That's right. And you touched earlier on a little bit on the power of attorneys, and I'd like to talk a little bit just so everybody understands, what is a durable healthcare power of attorney, and why is that so important to have?
The healthcare power of attorney, of course, implicit or implied in its name, is going to be for medical matters. You're going to, in the event you become incapacitated or incompetent, you can no longer make your own medical decisions. You have this agent designated for you to make those decisions on your behalf. Very important as you're preparing that to make sure you communicate your wishes with that agent, because you may be giving them complete discretion and authority to make that decision for you when you can no longer do so. So communication's key there, making sure that they understand what your wishes are going to be, how to carry out your wishes, communicate with the doctor what those wishes are, and just someone that's going to have a strong backbone to make sure that those wishes are fulfilled. But in short, just a document there to make sure that you do have someone designated for you to make decisions for you when you can no longer do so.
And that's solely, pertaining to your medical decisions.
Correct.
And, life-sustaining treatment and things like that. On the other side of the coin, in terms of being able to make decisions financially or, business-related, do you recommend people have that power of attorney in place for that as well?
I do. There's a couple ways to, of course, have people assist with your finances. You can name them as authorized signatories on your accounts, but then you're giving them a lot of power to control and manage those assets. The financial power of attorney is a great tool to have in place to make sure that in the event you need someone to carry out wishes for you or to carry out financial assistance for you, that they have the power to access those and to carry out those on your behalf.
And as far as the probate process goes, how long does that process typically take, after someone's passed away, for their family member to get their claim through the probate process?
Probate's a lot of hurry up and wait. The beginning, you have a lot of documents in place, the application, having the death certificates, so on and so forth, to submit to the probate court so that you receive that appointment as you're designated in your will. All in all, it all depends. You'd like to think that if you like to say that if you have everything in place that you're supposed to, have all your assets clearly communicated to your family members, somewhere between 9 months and a year. That doesn't mean that you cannot control those assets as you're going through that process. For example, your will should and likely does allow your personal representative to sell assets if need be, so they're not maintaining those assets throughout the entire 9-month, 10-month period, year-long period. But all in all, anywhere between 10 months to a year, it would be your standard. Of course, it can go a little bit over that depending on the complications that arise with the probate process over those assets.
Sure. And so from your standpoint, a young adult with children, kind of the ideal estate plan that they would have in place would include a will or a trust to some degree, several different powers of attorney to include the health care and possibly the financial related powers of attorney as well.
That's right.
Does that essentially cover kind of all the boxes that you like to see checked?
That's certainly going to be your basic estate plan. So for your average person, yes, the will, the healthcare power of attorney, and a power of attorney is going to assist you in making sure that you have the correct people in place, that you are helping your family members and your beneficiaries have the smoothest path possible after something's happened to you, after you've passed or become incapacitated, to assist you and then make sure everything's in place for them in the future.
And then the more assets that may be involved in an estate plan would lead you to explore more avenues like the trust side of things, and those can get as really as complicated as they need to be, I think, right?
That's exactly right. And trusts are in place for different reasons, but one of the main reasons are going to be to protect your assets from creditor claims, so from the probate process, not from creditor claims while you're living. Your standard grantor revocable trust isn't going to give you asset protection, but it protects you from the probate process on the back end.
You know, a lot of what I deal with is car accidents, and most people don't like, you know, having to talk to an attorney, you know, about some very difficult times in their lives after an accident. I know wills is another topic that people don't get really excited to have to talk about, but it's still extremely important, you know, part of our local community to have attorneys that can offer these services. What do you enjoy most about the probate planning side of things?
I like to consider myself more or less a happy lawyer. So you're dealing with a lot of personal injury. You have attorneys that, of course, are handling criminal law. I'm helping people, for the most part, put in place documents that are going to benefit them, while maybe somewhat morbid to think about. It's going to benefit them, but also benefit their family in the future. So it's something that people are or should be excited about planning for, because it's doing nothing but helping them. They're doing something precautionary to make sure that things are in place for the future, for their spouses, for their kids, for their future generations. And then again, on the real estate side, buying or selling something that you'd like to sell. I'd say that 95% of our client, or both John and my clients, are more or less on the happy side, rather than somebody going through something that needs or is in dire assistance.
When your services come to a conclusion, you probably can see the sense of relief, whether it's on the real estate or the will side, just knowing that everything's taken care of and in place.
Exactly right.
That's right. Well, Heath, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for being involved in the community. Thanks for all you do for justice in our community, and look forward to continuing to get to work with you and serve many mutual clients for years to come.
Yeah, me too, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Well, that's it for this time of Local Justice. Look forward to joining y'all next week, and thanks again for watching.
As soon as I contacted Elrod Pope, they handled everything. Without Elrod Pope's help, I'd have been paying hospital bills for years to come. Elrod Pope just took the stress and they put it on their table and took it off mine.
Coming to Elrod Pope, I didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was taken care of. It put me in a real calm state because I had someone on my side. I knew that I was in the right hands. It felt great.
Kidney disease is becoming more and more prevalent, especially with diabetes and hypertension. My training with kidney disease helps me to talk to patients and guide them through the steps that they can take, the changes that they can make into their lifestyles. And we have a dedicated team of providers, including dietitians and pharmacists that we work with to educate patients towards achieving that.
We know the type. You like to start early, finish late, make lemon squares, and make payments to the college fund from anywhere in the house. We know you rely on Comporium for the things you rely on most, like a view of the backyard. That's just a bunny, and hundreds of channels to watch, whenever you want. So you may think of us as just your internet company, but we're more like the I didn't know they could do all that company. Comporium, always ready.
From my first watch I purchased as a teenager, which still runs today, to the diamond ring I surprised my wife with, which she still talks about today. A gift from Norman Hagee is as good as it gets. Whether it's elegant timepieces by Bulova, Caravel, and Bel Air, or ornamental ironwork-inspired Southern Gates collection, or dazzling fine jewelry. A gift from Hagee is backed by over 60 years of family-owned and operated experience. Norman Hagee Jewelers, for gifts as good as it gets.